Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Alec, a sales engineer here at Pixalate. At Pixalate, we're dedicated to risk management, reporting, compliance, and privacy, helping businesses navigate challenges around invalid traffic, brand safety, MFA, SPO, and more. Today, we're excited to explore supply path optimization, or SPO, and why it's essential in today's digital landscape. We'll show how Pixalate can help you simplify and optimize your supply chain. I'm thrilled to be joined by Tyler Loechner, our VP of Platform Growth, Hawn Smith, Ad Fraud Product Manager, and special guest Ayse Pamuk, Manager of Platform Operations at Basis. Tyler, I'll hand it over to you for introductions.
Great, thanks, Alec. As Alec said, I am Tyler Loechner. I'm our VP of Research and Platform Growth at Pixalate. I lead our research initiatives, producing reports on key topics in the industry, including ad fraud trends and benchmarks, privacy compliance, risk areas for all players in the ad tech ecosystem, and trends in the open programmatic supply chain.
Hey everyone, I'm Hawn Smith. I'm the product manager for ad fraud here at Pixalate. I focus on a lot of the initiatives and developing new concepts around our IVT product, not limited to all the various IVT types that we have. Also included is leveraging those IVT types into our full product suite as well.
Hello, my name is Ayse Pamuk, and I'm the manager of platform operations at Basis. Basis is formerly known as Central, has been around in the industry for over 20 years, which makes us one of the longest-standing ad tech companies. While we are widely known as a DSP, our platform also supports buying social media and search ads, as well as direct buys. Although my team specifically works on the DSP side, we are overseeing all third-party integrations, including Pixalate, who provides us the measurement data and insights on the inventory that we buy on behalf of our clients. We've been working closely with Pixalate team on the supply chain verification cases, and I'm very excited to be here today to dive deeper into collaboration. Because although the SPO concept has been around for a while, I still think that the definition is not clear on every party, and I'd like to exploring that with you all.
Thank you, Ayse, and thank you, everyone. Let's dive into defining supply path optimization, or SPO. As you mentioned, it's tricky to pinpoint a standard definition, but at its core, SPO aims to bring more transparency to buying paths for both buyers and sellers, helping them identify areas for efficiency when sourcing inventory or supply. Ayse, kind of pivoting off of that, how does Basis define SPO?
We are also seeing this as a process of streamlining a delivery process. Most DSPs does this by finding the most efficient path to the supply source. This is usually the most direct path. And the most notable benefit to the advertisers is usually the low cost, and this is also the most popular impact to the advertisers. The reason being for this is that the fewer intermediaries in the supply chain will mean fewer fees applied. But the other impact that I kind of want to emphasize today is with the reduced fraud rates. We now know for a fact that the longer the supply chain, the higher the fraud rate. So this is also a way for us to combat fraud altogether.
So Ayse, earlier you mentioned a bit of Basis strategy. Can you expand upon that a bit more?
So at Basis, in our core, we care about delivering high performance to client campaigns, as well as high quality of inventory. Having an clear SPO policy around this was very important for us. Because we know, again, like on the points that I made before, by just like going direct to the direct, like finding direct paths and prioritizing those, we can ensure having a better campaign performance as well as high quality of inventory. This is why a few years back we've announced our supply quality policy, which allows only two hops between ourselves and the publisher. This will mean that we only work with exchanges who work directly with publishers, as well as publishers who have a direct relationship with certain intermediaries. We also accept those kind of inventory as well.
That's great. Thank you for the detailed information there. You mentioned a 2-hop limit as a major commitment for Basis. Can you share more about how this is managed on your end?
Yes, for sure. On our side, this is currently done by manual audits. So what we do, we look at the historic data and our buying patterns and work with the exchanges on getting like these policies enforced. We're still observing a lot of inconsistencies and inaccuracy in the data. This is why we haven't fully automated this process yet. But we are planning to do so in the near future.
It's great to hear that Basis is taking that initiative. As you know, SPO is a multifaceted problem, and you know that's a great initiative to share with the audience here, because if you're reducing the length of the supply chain, as we've already discussed, SPO, its ultimate goal is to have more direct sources. But as you mentioned, and Pixalate data backs up, the longer the supply chain, the more the invalid traffic there is. Our research shows that actually increases, whether it's 1 hop, 2 hops, 3 hops, 4 hops in the supply chain. IVT increases proportionately all the way up to 141% more ad fraud or invalid traffic when the supply chain length has 6 hops in it, which is quite a lot. Not many supply chains go 6, but it just goes to show that by implementing the 2-hop initiative at Basis, you're taking one step to eliminate risk. And I wanted to also just take a step back and talk about why SPO is beneficial overall. Like, why is this a trend? Why is this something so many people are talking about right now? At the end of the day, it improves cost efficiency. It reduces the ad tech tax. It gives you better quality. It gives you better control over things like brand safety. There's also sustainability has been a topic of interest, increasing interest. There's less data processing, less energy consumption, more social responsibility for companies that are transacting digital advertising. SPO as the ultimate goal kind of helps all of these things fall into place. Now, Pixalate data shows that even though SPO is a goal that a lot of companies are working towards, it's easier said than done. And our research shows that 41% of open programmatic traffic can't be validated. So there's still this huge gap of knowledge that, many companies in the industry need to work towards. As Hawn said, that food supply chain showing the receipts, there is a void right now that is helping nobody. So the more we can reduce that number, the better off everybody in the industry will be. Pixalate is committed to addressing this gap. We're releasing SPO reports on a quarterly basis to help everybody know kind of where we are and where we're going. And another thing I'll bring up as well is that even though traffic is purportedly direct, using the supply chain object to validate whether it really is direct is highly important. Our research shows that 8% of purportedly direct traffic is actually from non-authorized sellers. So just getting quote unquote direct traffic, you still need to validate that you really are getting direct traffic, because a lot of that might actually be ad fraud.
So piggybacking off of that, Ayse, what are the primary challenges that Basis faces in implementing SPO? And talking about one of those statistics, what is your reaction to the stat that 41% of traffic can't be validated?
I can't say I'm surprised, and that actually outlines the challenges that we are facing today. I mentioned previously one of the reasons that we couldn't fully automate our supply quality policy at the bidder level was because of the inaccuracy in data and those things that we cannot fully validate today. In the past, we know the bad actors always benefit from lack of transparency. And now that there's a shift towards transparency, they still hide their act behind the inaccurately represented data. We made it very clear in our supply quality policy and circulated amongst the supply partners that we are working with that any untruthful representation of inventory will be end up blocked on our end.
Thank you, Ayse. Very helpful information there. So clearly, supply path optimization is a pressing topic that affects all of us. It helps buyers identify and choose high-quality, trustworthy sellers within the programmatic advertising ecosystem. Pixalate Seller Trust Index is a tool used by many to assess seller quality. It was recently expanded to incorporate SPO scores. Tyler, could you share details on why Pixalate incorporated the SPO scores and the impact it has overall rankings?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we recently added both SPO and SCO validation scores to our Seller Trust Index, which is the industry standard for checking supply sources and seeing which sellers are strong in which areas. We recently revamped the Seller Trust Index in multiple ways. One of them was adding both of these two new scores. So sellers are now evaluated on a variety of criteria in individual countries. That includes market share, ad fraud or invalid traffic, exposure to made-for-advertising or MFA websites, and now both their supply path optimization scores and their supply chain object validation scores. So I'll focus on the supply path optimization or SPO score in the given index. That highlights the sellers with the most direct relationships with publishers in a given country. So you can look at, the US versus the UK versus China, pick a country across web, mobile, or CTV. You can see which sellers have access to the most direct inventory and are authorized to have that, to offer those direct paths. This is really useful information because it often surfaces platforms that are maybe not the brand names, the household names that you've always known about in different countries that have access to direct inventory, but perhaps their market share isn't as high. And if supply path optimization is a top priority for you in a given ad economy or a given region, this might help open up new additional inventory sources for you just by looking at Pixalate's Seller Trust Index, which is just on our website. We think this holds ad platforms accountable as well to providing what advertisers are looking for, which is these direct paths. And our rankings help open up and be transparent about which platforms rank where relative to all the other ad tech platforms. These additions were made to the Seller Trust Index based on client feedback, based on conversations we were having in the industry. It reflects a broader desire to pinpoint which supply paths offer the greatest level of directness, again, all pointing back to the SPO problem that everybody's attempting to solve.
To kind of add to that as well, Tyler, because you laid out a lot of very good points. A lot of times of our STI previously, we try to use our own internal notes and ways to rank sellers, whether it's IVT, whether it's just general ranking as a TXT, whether it's relationship with apps. And to that, it can be subjective, right? Because, it's a trust index. No matter, we can't avoid being as subjective, but we try to be as objective as possible. So one thing that we have battled in the past is how can we be as transparent as possible without letting the cheaters know how we are figuring out that they're cheating or where we're catching IVT. So kind of the interesting thing with SPO and SCO, that's a transparent chain of events that everyone can see. So we're using that in alignment with what we are already using to kind of add transparency to correlate hey, this is what we're seeing. We're already flagging, hey, this is also the correlation between what's happening in the supply chain as well. And also the issues with the supply path being optimized, direct seller relationship and reseller relationship. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you for the addition there, Hawn. And talking about the Seller Trust Index and how we've incorporated the SPO and SCO scores in there, do you see any notable changes in the Seller Trust Index rankings that can be directly attributed to SPO scores?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that someone can also see when they're looking at the scores is that just because you have a large market share score does not necessarily imply a good overall score, but also just because your market share score may be lower doesn't mean that you have a lower score as well. And what I kind of mean by that is, so just in case, just a lot of times in CTV inventory, a lot of the focus is having direct relationships and high quality connections to the inventory that you're selling on, right? So just because a seller may have a lot of reach, they may not have as many direct relationships because they're just arbitraging. So by including the SPO score, we are actually giving additional points to sellers. They may have less necessary reach when it comes to impression volume, but we have a higher quality because it's coming direct.
Would you say that a high SPO score correlates with a high overall ranking?
So yeah, of course. So a good SPO score would definitely help you with your overall ranking. However, it's not the only factor, and it doesn't outweigh all the other contributing factors. So just because you have direct inventory, well, I won't say it this way, keep it as a metaphor. If something is bad, whether or not you have direct access to something that is bad does not change it from being bad. So SPO score would not necessarily change the overall score. Because if you already have access to questionable inventory, just because you have direct access to that does not mean your score will go up.
Turning it over to you, Ayse, you mentioned the challenges that Basis encounters when trying to work towards supply path optimization, such as data completeness, accuracy, quality, and scale. Are there any best practices that have emerged in your approach?
Yes, absolutely. Similar to you, we are also trying our best to make the best use of the data that is available to us. We recently completed the work that our bidders now have access to the seller's JSON file. And we do also run lots of different validation on our end. We're also cross-referencing those records against the txt files to really be confident in what we are buying, and what we are buying is valid and authorized inventory. But another project that I'm particularly excited about, that we are now getting ready to make campaign performance reporting at the supply path level available to our users. And I'm hoping through this way, users will have more visibility around which path generate the better performance, which is usually the most efficient path. But I'm hoping this will help them be educated further and make informed decisions. This is, I hope, in the long run will help them choose quality over scale.
That's very interesting, being able to go to that granular level of campaign analysis. You spoke about the balance between scale and quality. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, it's been an ongoing battle, I think, for us all. And since I joined Basis, that's pretty much how I see my role, as ensuring high quality inventory without compromising too much on the scale, because we receive a lot of pressure coming from the advertisers around the amount of impressions they want to generate, or the amount of money they have to spend. At the end of the day, I understand that that's their campaign performance, but we've seen cases after cases generating more impressions does not necessarily give the actual performance metrics. So we are doing our best to educate folks like our clients to make sure this is understood. But we also do our best to empower them with certain tools that give them flexibility around either maybe making things more strict for themselves, or maybe even opting out from our supply policy. But at the end of the day, again, it's their decision. I myself, I'm much rather on the side that I rather see few people see my ad than 1,000 votes.
Tyler, Pixalate's recent data shows an 8% discrepancy where direct traffic is not authorized. How does Pixalate address this?
Great question. So the goal is always to work with authorized sellers, whether you're buying direct or through a reseller. That's why we have these tools like ads.txt and sellers.json and the supply chain object to be able to validate who you're buying from, make sure they're authorized to sell it. I mentioned earlier, and you brought it up again, purported direct traffic 8% of the time is actually from an unauthorized seller. And according to our data, that traffic, that 8% pool of traffic that's not authorized, has a 20% higher invalid traffic or ad fraud rate than the 92% of traffic that is authorized. So immediately, by not checking for authorization, you are exposing yourself to additional invalid traffic risk. I can pass it to Hawn to discuss exactly how Pixalate goes through that validation process and the tools we have to help our customers in the ad industry address and reduce that exposure.
Thank you, Tyler. So going on with that, part of how we build out our SEO verification and validation suite is we wanted to take a couple approaches towards that. So one of the blind spots that we recognize with to getting towards SPO through SEO is that even though you can have a receipt or chain of events to just anyone looking at the chain, it can mean anything. There's no way to verify what does that mean. What does this ID mean? What does this domain mean? What does having 6 sellers to get one ad on a website that I don't know? What does that all mean? So part of the product that we built out, we do 2 different things, validation and verification. On the validation side, we first validate that the actual supply chain object is a valid supply chain object. Based off the IAB spec, we look for if the chain is actually marked as being complete, is it structured correctly, is it missing certain things that would be expected, and that's just taking care of the low-hanging fruit. So the verification side, however, we came up with a logic for various expectations of the chain based off the spec, but also based off our own interpretation of what we believe a verified supply chain object should operate. So kind of very layman's way of breaking it down. So with each hop, there's a seller. So one of the ways we verify, we make sure that every seller is referencing the correct seller and ID in each other's seller's JSON. And then, for example, in the first node, we always expect that to be a direct seller or have a direct relationship with whatever is being sold, whether that's an app or a domain. And so in verifying that, we verified that the ID in seller domain is actually a verified seller domain that appears on the ads.txt or app.ads.txt on the inventory. And we also make sure that the seller itself acknowledges itself as a direct relationship on the seller JSON. You would expect that those things should always be in line, but as Tyler already noted with 8%, a lot of times that is not in line as expected, which is kind of the benefit of having that. And using our suite, you don't have to worry about manually checking that yourself. You can just use it in our error codes that we give you to identify what the issue is. And we have very different error codes that break down whether or not it's an unauthorized direct seller, unauthorized reseller, whether or not there's a missing handshake in between the link, or in a lot of cases, whether or not a chain says that it is complete, but it's actually not. That's just a few things that we do. And incorporating that logic as well, we also use that to flag things such as invalid traffic. And as I noted back in the STI conversation, we already were scoring sellers based off our own metrics using like IVT as an example. And what we've seen there is a lot of alignment with ad fraud or IVT with unauthorized direct seller. So we can leverage that also as a way for flagging IVT.
Thank you, Hawn, for that detailed feedback there. It's really interesting to hear all the different ways you can extrapolate the data, action the reason codes, and see the node level breakdown on what we're reporting on. So in closing, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today and to our speakers for sharing such valuable insights on supply path optimization. We covered a lot from defining SPO and understanding the role of the supply chain object in enhancing transparency to the benefits of direct relationships and how Pixalate's updated seller trust index reflects these advancements. It's clear that SPO is more than just a buzzword. It's a critical strategy for optimizing ad quality, reducing fraud, and improving efficiency across the programmatic supply chain. A special thank you to Ayse from Basis for taking the time to sit down with us and share how Basis navigates SPO challenges, enforces transparency, and ensures quality for their clients. Your perspective has truly enriched this conversation. We hope this session has offered valuable takeaways to help you navigate the evolving landscape of SPO with confidence. For more information on Pixalate's tools, research, and best practices, please visit our website at pixalate.com. Thanks again to everyone, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.